Hi, I'm Mark here at the C-Bar. The reason for this video is that I'm seeing too many people get hurt real bad. I did some research. 2 people a day are getting killed in this country on horse wrecks. A lot of people are getting injured every day in horse-related accidents. Horses are dangerous. People do wrong things. They do some really, really wrong things. Put themselves in those situations. I know. I did all that wrong stuff too and learned the hard way. I'm hoping you don't have to learn the hard way. The best way I can go about preaching to people is tell them a story. A while back, several years ago, I was out on a horse. The horse trip went down. Put me on the ground. I'm like one of those people that call me all the time with their stories about horse wrecks. I had broken ribs. So I called my horse. I said, "Louie, come here." Old Louie came over and I said, "Go back to the ranch. Get Marcia and come get me." So Louie, he takes off. He's running back to the ranch. Gets back there, he finds Marcia. Paws at the ground, kind of doing this, like, let's go, let's go. She figures out pretty quick I'm in trouble, so she gets a horse and he leads her right back to where I am and she saves me. I hope you know that's the biggest lie in the world. That happened on Fury and Flicka and Trigger and all those horses. But it don't happen in real life. Because horses don't think like we think. The truth of the matter is, I'm down on the ground, I can't get up, my horse is right over there eating grass, he could care less. Ain't nothing to him. Heck, in fact, he's happier he's not having to carry me around now. He eventually wandered back to the ranch. Marcia found him waiting to be fed that evening. He'd forgotten about me. She backtracked him, found me. That's the way a horse thinks, though. We would like for them to think like we do. We would like for them to have the emotions that we do. But we can't project our emotions on a horse, or we're putting ourselves in a world of possible trouble. You need to learn to talk and think horse. They're not going to learn to talk our language. We got to learn to talk their language. And if we're going to stay safe, we got to be able to anticipate what might happen. If you can anticipate what's going to happen, you can a lot of times cheat the problem, avoid the problem before it gets to you. But you can't believe that that horse has some sort of mystical ability to think. I saw a fellow wrote a book one time, dressed up like an Indian guy, and the horse had feathers and paint all over him and the horse, and he went on for this whole book about the mystical values of a horse. That perpetuates the problem, because the guy was full of horse you know what. Horses are no more mystical than a dog or a cat or you or me. That's the truth. I've seen some amazing things out of horses, but they can't think like I do. I've never seen a horse feel sorry for me. I have felt sorry for horses many times. Usually it was wrong, but I felt sorry for them. But they don't. They don't have that same capacity. They're on their instincts. They're on survival. They can't reason. They can remember, but they can't reason. That's just the truth. It's the way they are. I wish they were like we wanted them to be. They're not. And to give them more credit than they deserve with their mental capacity is putting yourself in a world of possible danger. That's the first lesson. There's a lot more. I'm sure about half of you don't like me already. Some of you's probably turning this off, going to send it back for a refund or something, whatever. All I know is that I've learned a lot of things the hard way. And if a few of you hear what I'm saying, listen up a little bit, avoid a big problem, then that's okay. Because people can be unhappy with me or not like me. I don't care that much, to tell you the truth. But I just got to pass this on. Heck, you don't know, I might get in a horse wreck tomorrow, I won't be able to pass it on. But I got to pass on what I know, and I learned the hard way, and hopefully you'll learn the easy way. There'll be more lessons. There'll be more things you won't want to hear. You may not like me at all before this thing's done, but maybe you'll think about it a little bit. So I'm going to get on doing some other stuff, and when I get another big idea in my head, I'll record it. Lesson number 2. Are you ready? This might really aggravate some of you. Let me start with a story. Got a neighbor who lives close. He's got a little different way about doing things. To catch his horses, he goes out with a treat in his hand. And then when his horses are out on the trail, if they start acting up, he'll give them a treat to quiet them down. And then as soon as they get back to the horse trailer, he gives them more treats and hay and all kinds of things. He's trying to be nice. And I gotta say, he has some of the most unruly, spoiled to death, dangerous horses I've ever been around. And in fact, I don't even like to ride with the guy. But it's an interesting story because I'm going to use it. In his mind, a human's mind, he's being nice. And if you're nice to the horse will be nice back. If I came to your house, knocked on your door, and you said, well, come on in here and we'll sit at the table and visit, and here, have some apple pie with ice cream on it. We'd have a good time. We'd visit and laugh and eat the ice cream and have fun. And I come to your house again. But this time you don't have any pie and ice cream, but we sit and laugh at the table anyway. The difference is that I value something different than the ice cream and the pie. I'm a human being. I can rationalize, I can think, I can get, that apple pie is not the center of my universe. But that horse can't think that way. That treat is the center of the universe for that horse. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to look at a horse and people will tell me, Angel there, she just loves people. And I know what the deal is. So we go to look at the horse, and the horse comes rushing up. Out comes the treat. And what completely befuddles me is how the human can think that horse loves people and not think, I wonder if the horse just loves the treat. Easiest thing in the world to figure out. Walk out there and don't give them a treat. See how many days they keep running up to you. Before long, they're going to quit. Tells you something. They're coming for the treat. Not for your human companionship. So that horse don't love people, he loves the treat. So if you can feel my frustration, it's one of the most frustrating things I see people do. Feeding that horse out of your hand makes you feel good because you're being nice to the horse. But now let's talk about where the horse comes from. How's the horse think about this? All horses have a dominance scale. There's the most dominant to the least dominant. I had a horse one time for several years. He was a sweetheart, nicest thing around. I kept him away from the other horses because they was kind of mean to him. And I really got to thinking that he had a little different. He had something different about him because he could think other than horses think. Well, one day I got in a new horse, and it seemed like just a sweetheart horse, so I felt like my horse needed a little company, so I put them together. Well, the new horse was even further down the dominant scale than my good old sweetheart horse. What do you think happened? My sweetheart horse turned into a monster. Treated this other horse terrible. So I played a little game with it. I just threw the feed in one spot. I wanted to see how nasty my sweetheart horse could be. Well, he wouldn't let the other horse eat until he had all he wanted. Then he'd walk away. Then the other horse came and gobbled up what was left. I did that 3 days in a row, and I do believe my sweetheart horse would have starved that other horse to death. So what I'm telling you is that they see things differently than we do. A horse, in a horse's mind, they cannot even fathom the idea that there's such a thing as kindness and that someone would give them something just out of kindness. They perceive it as weakness. They perceive that as they're taking that food out of your hand. I hate to say it this way, but it's the only way I can say it, is that they get the idea that you are their bitch and that you are there, that they can take advantage of, dominate, take the feed right out of your hand. Because that's what they're doing in their mind. They're taking your food away from you, and they can't comprehend that you're trying to give it to them. In their mind, they're taking it away from a more subservient, less dominant creature, which is you. And if you want trouble, that's when you start finding trouble. Horses are so disrespectful to anything, to any other horse or creature, that they can dominate, and they're dangerously disrespectful. Oh, I know a lot of you aren't liking this at all. I was asked to lecture at a little private college in Prescott. It's kind of a far left kind of little private college, and I started talking like this, and afterwards they emailed me and they said that when they needed me again, they'd let me know. Made them mad. That's all right. Maybe somebody heard what I was saying. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, you got to be careful with this whole dominant scale thing as to how the horse perceives it. If a horse perceives it as weakness, then they think they're the more dominant of the two. And that's when you walk into trouble. In your mind, you're being kind. In their mind, you're being weak. And they're fine with that. I've had horses together, and I'll take the dominant horse out. And you and I would think, oh good, the Wicked Witch of the North is dead, and everybody can dance and be, because now we're free. Well, that's not how horses think. You take the most dominant horse out of the pen, they all start fretting and worrying about him because he left. Where'd he go? Well, that tells me horses are just fine with being in their scale. They can dominate some, and some dominate them. Some are real dominant. I stay away from those real dominant horses. They're tough hombres. The ones I find best to work with are the further down the dominant scale. I've learned a lot of things, but about that the horses that seem like they're so sweet are really the horses to the bottom of the dominant scale. It's not that they're being sweet because they want to, it's they're being sweet because they think they have to be, and I interpreted that wrong. So when you start seeing it for what it really is, it's kind of an eye-opener. So, I got another one of these coming. Chew on this one for a while, and there'll be a few of you out there that's madder and hops at me, but as I've said before, this is just my opinion. Well, number 3. I gotta let you in on a little secret. Whenever I go to buy a horse, I'm looking at all the conditions. I'm looking at how the people handle the horse, how the horse responds to them, and I try to make a composite decision as to whether this horse is a good one between its ears. One of the things I have to take into consideration is, what are they feeding this horse? I go somewhere, I'm looking at a horse, kind of thinking maybe I like the horse. Maybe it's a little amped up, maybe it's a little energetic, a little spooky or something. But I have to always remember, what they feed that horse has a huge impact on the horse's behavior. You would not believe it. What I'll do is I'll look around and maybe I'll see some alfalfa and maybe some bags of grain and pellets and concoctions of all kinds, and I know what's happening. Maybe I buy the horse, take it home. First thing I do is put it in the stall or its paddock, throw some Bermuda grass hay to it and walk away. They won't eat it for the first couple days, and they're agitated, they're aggravated. The reason is, one, they're coming off the sugar. They're going through sugar withdrawal. They're antsy. They're just kind of beside themselves. After about 10 days, the withdrawal from all that food that he's been getting starts to wane. He's coming through the process. And by now he's eating that Bermuda grass hay like it's an old friend. The difference in the horse is huge. Huge. They quiet down, they calm down. Their blood sugar isn't going up and down. They're not hunting for sweet feeds and grain and all that stuff. Alfalfa is one of the worst things you can feed a horse, in my opinion. Now I've got a whole new horse. Got a horse that's quiet, doesn't spook as much, and his true being can come out, because now you'll find out what the horse is really made out of. Whereas before, he was all amped up on all that junk food. I call it junk food. Unbelievable. The problem people have with doing it is that the horses don't like Bermuda for a few days. Pretty soon they're fine. I know when I'm feeding wrong, or when other people are feeding wrong. At feeding time, those horses make a beeline right for the hay bunk. Boy, they're ready to eat. Wow, let's go. You know you're feeding them too much junk food. But when a horse, when it's feeding time, looks over at me and kind of looks at me for a second, kind of just starts wandering my way, I know now I'm feeding right. I'm getting him on the right menu. All I feed's Bermuda hay, Bermuda grass. I don't feed grain. I don't feed pellets. I don't feed alfalfa. I don't feed orchard grass or timothy or any of those things. They do nothing for the horse. Bermuda will fatten him up over time and keep him leveled out and a lot nicer horse to be with. Good old Bermuda grass. No senior feeds, no supplements, none of that. I find that to be totally useless on a horse. I have had situations where a horse would come in kind of poor, quiet and calm, easy going. So I'd think, well, I need to put some weight on him, so I'd feed him some of those things I'm telling you not to feed. Pretty soon I got a different horse on my hands. Now the horse wants to spook over nothing. I've proven it to myself over and over and over. What you feed a horse is a big determination of how they're going to act. As again, just my opinion. I've proven it to myself over and over. Food is not love. This junk food makes a junkie out of the horse and makes him dangerous to be around. Good old Bermuda grass, lots of it. They'll stay fat and healthy on that, and their mind will stay quieter. They don't get out of hand. That's just the way it is. But like I said, it's just my opinion. Number 4. First of all, excuse my gear here. I'm looking like my grandfather. We're shooting a movie. I'm in a little western movie, and this idea came to me, and they don't need me right now, so I thought I'd run in here and tell you a story. I started shooting horses in 1978. I retired from shooting horses in November of 12, so had it quite a while. Had a fella, notoriously aggravating. He irritated everybody in the country. Everybody loved to beat Ed up. Well, he came driving down the driveway, and I thought, here we go. Aggravating, know-it-all, wanting something for nothing kind of guy. The kind of guy I tried desperately not to be. Got out of his truck, pulled a horse out, and he said, hey, I want you to shoe my horse. I said, well, all right. I said, tell me about your horse. He said, nobody can shoe it. Nobody can shoe this horse. I said, son, you want me to do it? He said, yeah, you can. He said, I have faith in you. I thought, yeah, you just don't care if I get hurt. So I said, I'll tell you what, Ed, I'll shoe your horse, and not only will I shoe your horse, but I'll teach that horse to stand quiet and lift his feet up in the air for me, for anybody. And he says, all right, what are you going to charge me? I said, $500. And he said, what? I said, $500. I said, that includes the training and the shoeing. Oh, he did some circles and worked on me for a while, but I held tight. And finally he agreed. And he said, all right, get started. I said, well, I'll get started when I see you drive down my driveway. And he said, why don't I get to watch? I said, because it's a big secret. Nobody gets to know this but me. Well, all right, he got all aggravated with me. How long is it going to take? I said, it could take quite a while. So he gets in his car and leaves. It's about noon. So I take his horse, put it in the round pen, put a chair in the middle of the round pen and get my long buggy whip. And I'll make that horse go in circles. Round and around and around. Pretty soon, this old horse needs air. He needs oxygen. I'm starving him of oxygen. And we all know we need that. And when I started, he starts kind of looking at me like, can I quit? Can I quit? I just kept him going for a little while longer. So I let him stop. His old sighs are I walk over and go to pick up his foot. He won't let me. I walk back to the middle and we go around it again. About the third time he decided that picking up his foot was okay because he got to sit and breathe and suck up that oxygen. A little while longer, we just kept doing this and doing this and doing this. Pretty soon he decides, yeah, here, take my foot. I'll breathe air while you do that. It's a good trade. Well, then I switched to the back foot. No problem. Turn him go the other way. Front and back, no problem. He decided that he'd give up this issue. So about 4:30 I called old Ed on the phone and I said, hey Ed, come get your horse. He said, what? I thought it'd take you a week. I said, no, your horse is all shot. He's changed his mind. He said, did you drug him? I said, no, I don't do drugs like that. I don't do that. So down my driveway he comes. There's his old horse standing there at the hitching post all shot up, looking kind of good. And He walked over and picked his feet up, and he walked all the way around picking his horse's feet up. And he said, "How'd you do this?" I said, "It's a secret. It's a secret, Ed. Give me my money." Well, he thought he was getting cheated and all this and all that, and I said, "That horse is not leaving, Ed, until you pay me. That was the deal. You made a deal, and you got to hold up to it." He said, "All right," so he peels out the money, gets in his truck and drives down the road. Oh, he's mad. Oh, he's mad. But I got to say, it was probably one of the most wonderful days in my horseshoeing career. Because old Ed never came back again. Oh, that was swell. What I'm trying to tell you is this. There's an old saying, make the right thing easy and the wrong thing real hard. Well, that old horse figured out that fighting somebody to pick his feet up was too darn hard. And it was much easier to just stand there and give him the foot. So, no blood was drawn, no rope burns, nobody wore out, nobody hurt. Just had to convince the horse. It was just a lot easier letting me have his feet. I got to get back to the chute. That was 4. 5's are coming as soon as I think it up. I'm back. I'm on a roll. Guns pull my pants down. I have a theory. I think I've discovered the reason women like older men. We'll come back to that. I had a fella, lives about a mile south of here. Good guy. He had a horse, and it was a nice horse. But it wouldn't go in a trailer. Wouldn't go in a horse trailer. He did everything else perfect. Wouldn't go in a horse trailer. Well, he came down one day and he said, "I don't know what to do." He said, "I've done everything." He said, "I've bought those videos and they tell you how to do all this with, you make them go in circles and you put pressure on the horse until finally the horse goes in a little bit." And he said, "That didn't work." And then I hired this gal who came out and she was supposed to be an expert at putting horses in horse trailers and teaching them how, and she couldn't do it. And she said, "I just don't know what to do. This horse does everything perfect. He does everything. But you can't put him in a horse trailer and take him anywhere." He said, "He's kind of worthless." He said, "You want him?" I said, "Maybe. What kind of deal you give me?" Well, he shot me a screaming deal. I saddled up old Louie and I trotted right down there and I ponied him back. I got this little paddock out here and I pulled my horse trailer right in there. Then I went and got this new horse. Put him in the paddock with my horse trailer. And then I walk into that horse trailer. Now I gotta say, I've told you in the past that alfalfa's bad news, but I needed alfalfa this time. Took me a couple of flakes of alfalfa and threw it in front of that horse trailer. And that's when the training started. I walked out the gate and went about my day. That evening I went in the house and had dinner and watched a little TV and, kind of forgot about him, to tell you the truth. Next morning I walk out. He knows where the alfalfa is now. He sniffed it out. He's just a-looking at it. I just went about my day. Well, next morning I walk out. Boy, the hunger's starting to outweigh the fear now. He's starting to think, he's getting in there a little bit, coming out. Third day. He'd go in there and he'd gobble up some and then run out again. Oh boy, this fear he's having to work through is tough on him. Well, I walk out there the fourth morning and he's nowhere to be seen until I look inside that horse trailer and all he's just sitting there just eating that old alfalfa and just as happy as a lark. Well, I just kept doing that for about 7 days because I wanted to make sure that he really got a big dose of that horse trailer being okay. Well, now, after about 7 days, he thinks that's home in there. Heck, he even stands around in there when he's not eating. He just kind of goes in there and gets out of the, gets a little shade. That old horse trailer's fine for him. He did it at his own pace, his own time. He had to overcome the fear at his own pace. I didn't push him, I didn't force him, I didn't do anything. I just used the law of nature. I knew he was going to get hungry enough to face his fear, in and out, approach, retreat, until he finally figured out in his old horse mind that horse trailer was not a threat. It was the easiest horse training I ever did, and I gotta say, I sold that horse for a lot of money. Well, anyway, getting back to my first statement. Why do gals seem to prefer older men? Well, I'll tell you. My theory. When I was a young guy, full of myself, what we used to do with a horse like that is we'd open the front window. We'd tie a long rope on, and then we'd get another truck and we'd drag that horse in there. Holy smoke, we tore up trailers and we skinned up horses and we made them even crazier. But we were young and, full of testosterone and wanting to conquer the world. Well, you see, now, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little smarter. And fighting those battles is nothing I want to do. I've learned to think a little bit, work with things a little slower, a little more careful, be easier about things, let the horse work his own problems out. And that is why I believe gals like older guys. My theory. I don't know. But all I know is fighting a horse to put him in a horse trailer. I don't do it. I get along just fine. Maybe that'll work for you, but I don't have any tore up horse trailers or skinned up horses anymore, and their minds are settled with the horse trailer. When I'm done with my little experience out there, they settle. Their mind has worked past the fear, and that's the point. So, that's number 5. I guess there'll be number 6. I think so. Something will come to me, but I got to get back. I'll see you. Hello again. I got some chores to do around the guest house, and I thought I'd talk to you a little bit while I'm doing some of this. Got people coming this weekend, and I got to get things kind of cleaned up. What I want to talk to you about today is the dominant scale. And how do you handle a horse high on the dominant scale, and how do you handle a horse low on the dominant scale? I made a video, it's on my website, about this. It's like 20 minutes long. You might want to refer to that. But let's just talk about extremes. Some horses are very, very dominant, aggressive, want their way, don't care about anything but their way. Tough hombres for sure. When I was a young guy, I used to like those horses because I liked the battle and all that kind of thing. But now that I'm older and quieter, I don't particularly enjoy that. Well, I don't enjoy it at all. I avoid those kind of horses. But here's the thing about those really tough hombres. There's only one way to deal with them, to keep them in line, keep them from hurting you. And that's to play the same game they play, which is brute force and intimidation. You can try to be nice to those horses and they'll spot you for a weakling and come for you in a heartbeat because that's just the nature of them. If you want to handle a horse like that, you got to realize the battle is on. I found the only thing that would work for me was to be more aggressive, more intimidating, and apply more pain to them than they thought was worth the trade-off of being dominant. At the same time, there's some very good qualities to these horses. Back in my team roping days, I bought my nephew a heading horse, Appaloosa, meaner than sin, tough as a knot. But he was a good heading horse because that old steer had come out of the chute, and that old horse was on him and trying to bite him on the rear end all the way to the end. I mean, he was on it because that's what he wanted to do, compared to a horse that didn't want to do it as bad. So there are some real advantages to a very aggressive horse. Unless you're a performance person, I don't really recommend that kind of horse at all. It's just too much maintenance, too many battles, it's too dangerous, you're just always fighting them. So let's talk about the other kind of horse. Way down on the dominant scale. Way down at the bottom. Afraid of everything. Scared to death. Don't want to get hurt. If you go lashing out at those horses, you'll just make them crazy. You can't handle them in the same way that you would handle a very dominant horse. Those horses very low on the dominant scale, they need to know you're not going to hurt them, which means that you just approach them much differently. Quieter, calmer. A lot of times I don't even try to pet on them. I mean, I just want to let them know I'm not going to hurt them. Pretty soon they start realizing that. And they start getting comfortable. And they start understanding what I want. And it doesn't take too long, really, to teach them because they're so willing to do whatever you want them to do because they're very subservient. They want you to be the lead in this relationship. It's just a different thing than the others, than the dominant horse. You got to be kind, quiet. Don't hurt them. Boy, just don't hurt them, because that just usually sets you back. The advantage to that kind of horse is, once they accept you as the leader, which they'll do quickly, they start trusting that you're not going to hurt them. They become very loyal to you. I mean, they'll just come right up and, oh, they just depend on you for their security so much that it's really hard not to like them. What I've also found is that when you're riding those kind of horses, they are so tuned in to the rider, which would be me and my experiences, that if I get upset about something, they get upset. But if I don't get upset, they don't, which means we're out riding, we see something that might normally scare a horse, and they're gonna go back to me. What's he doing? What's he doing? If he's okay, I'm okay. It's a nice quality also. Going back to the very dominant horse, they're pretty brave animals usually, and not too much scares them. So there's that side. But to the back to the very, very submissive horse. That's how I personally handle both ends of that scale, and I choose not to fight the battles on the dominant horse anymore. So every horse is somewhere in there, somewhere. And you've got to sit and determine where they are. Are they afraid, or are they being aggressive? You have to work with that. You have to determine, are they just being stubborn? Are they being aggravating? Or are they afraid? Once you tune into your horse, then you'll know what approach to take. At least that's the way I do it. what approach to take with that particular horse. Takes me a while. Whenever I get a horse in, it takes me a week just to figure out the ins and outs of this horse. Once I figure them out is when I start making progress. But I have to do it that way. I mean, you might see me on one horse spanking him, the next horse loving on him. You gotta, they're all different. You gotta work with them. Thought you might find that interesting. I got to get back to the housework, company coming, but I'll get back to you when I got number 7. Thanks. Dishes. Hi again. Got another one for you. As you can tell, I get ideas, I set the camera up, I record them. I could be doing anything. Right now, I'm writing on a second novel. First novel I wrote, The Seabar Story, was published in February of 12. First novel I ever wrote, I was very concerned about it. I thought everybody, who would like it. So I have some friends who know me pretty well, and they know I'm not really all that bright. So they looked at it and liked it, and that made me a little braver, and I started getting out there a little bit with it. Well, it's done pretty well. People are liking it, I'm inspired, and I'm on a second novel, so that's what I'm doing right now. But I want to take some time away from this to talk about something very important that I've learned about the horse world. When you're a horse dealer, selling a horse is not an issue at all if you got a good horse. They'll go in a few days. If you're trying to dump a bad horse, that's a whole new story. You don't see on my website, you don't see my mistakes, you only see the good ones, because the mistakes I send off to a horse trader. I'm a horse dealer, and then I get rid of my junk to the horse traders. But when I'm looking at a horse, here's the process. Drive in, look at the place. Look at the people trying to sell me the horse. Look around the barn or the shed or the tack room. What are they feeding the horse? I talked about that in a previous video. Then I look at the horse real hard. If I'm still interested, now comes the big test. And this is some things that no matter what you're being told, because the truth is, I have learned that half of what I'm being told is a lie and the other half just isn't true. So I have to, and I've been lied to by little old ladies and everybody, but hopefully there's kids around, because if you ask a question to the kids, they'll tell you the truth. Yeah, Dad got bucked off that horse yesterday, that kind of stuff. They're not savvy enough yet to lie. Now, why people think they can lie on a horse sale deal and it's perfectly okay totally befuddles me. There's too much at risk here. It scares me to death to think I'm going to sell somebody a horse and they get hurt on it. That's really bad news. So I seem to be a lot more concerned than most. And that's worked for me because I got a whole lot of buyers and I don't have a whole lot of horses. That works. I get the horse in and he's going pretty quick once he's up on the videos. But anyway, let's get back to me being at the place. First thing I do, if I decided, okay, I'm interested in looking a little further at this horse, I get in my truck and I pull out my big old Tarpolian. And if you've seen any of my videos from when I have other horses for sale, the Tarpolian comes out. Tarpolians just scare the bejesus out of these horses for some reason. Plastic, oh my God. 90% of the horses out there are terrified by it. I want to know that. Now, the reason I do this is not because I want to know if the horse can tolerate the tarpaulin, because I can train any of them to do it, to tolerate it. I can train any of them if I spend enough time. I can desensitize them to it. The purpose is, when I bring this tarpaulin in and I start flopping it around and coming at them with it, I want to know what their first response is. Is their first response fear, panic, snort, turn around, run away? That first response is one very telling thing, because that'll tell you what will happen when you're sitting on that horse's back and a scary situation comes along. If they start doing that, snorting, turning and running, oh, I'm out of there. I'm not interested. But let's say they tolerate it and kind of look at it, kind of turn their head sideways, but they don't respond big. That's all right, because the way they responded was not with total panic, but with concern, and concern doesn't get me dumped on the ground. If they tolerate it completely and can care less, that's a jackpot for me. That's wonderful, because they don't respond with fear. Now, if they get through that, okay. Next step is I tell the owner, the person trying to sell me the horse, saddle up, old Dobbin, and by golly, ride him around a little bit and watch careful at their face. Because if they hesitate, and you can see hesitation, you can see fear, you can see concern, if they do that, that tells me something. Maybe old Dobbin isn't quite as gentle and quiet as they're letting you to believe if they have too much fear in their face. But let's just say they say sure, or let's just say they say no, I'm down in the hip or something. Nope, I will not buy that horse. All they're going to see is my taillights going out the driveway. But let's just say sure, they take the horse over and throw the saddle on. Well, that'll tell me a lot, because I know instantly if a person's green or not. I know if they're experienced. And you would think I'm looking for somebody experienced, but the problem you have there is that an experienced horse person, let's just say there's ways to make a horse look better today, that he won't look quite as good tomorrow. So I'm a little concerned. I kind of prefer a little bit greener horse, a greener horse owner. Let's just say they get on there, ride him around a little bit. Now we got another big one coming. I say, okay, now I want you to ride the horse to the end of the driveway and ride him clear out of sight. 90% of the horses out there can't do that good at all. Most of them are herd bound and barn sour. And quite frankly, 90% of the horses out there aren't worth owning. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want them on my place. I don't even want to look at them. But if that horse rides to the end of the driveway and just goes out of sight, hot diggy dog, we're all right now, because that horse doesn't respond with panic, and he's not herd bound and barn sour. That's huge. That means he's in about the top 10% of all the horses out there, mind-wise. That is so huge, because the barn sour and the panic is what gets people hurt and killed. It's a big thing. Those are little secrets that I've used over and over again, and I've proven it to myself many, many times. That's the way to go. I'm going to get back to my novel. This is number, and I'll come up with number 8 here very, very soon, I'm sure. There's a lot of ways to get hurt on a horse. 2 come to mind right off the bat. A horse that spooks out from underneath you. They're lightning fast. They'll leave you laying on the ground and they'll be 20 feet over there so fast it's unbelievable. I've had my ribs broke twice and a head concussion over that very issue. I really suggest to think back on the previous video in that tarpaulin concept. Tells me what the first response is. That's helped me eliminate an awful lot of getting hurt. But don't think of it in the way that, oh, I'll take my horse out and desensitize him to the tarpaulin and then I'll be okay. You're missing the point. The point is the first response. Because you can desensitize him to a tarpaulin, he'll spook off of something else. You can't desensitize him to everything. You want that first response. You do have some defense against that being spooked out from underneath you part. Quite frankly, I've learned, when you have a horse that does that, get rid of him. Be careful when you start saying things like, well, I love old Sugar Plum. Ask yourself, are you in love with the idea of Sugar Plum, or has Sugar Plum earned your love? I love Louie. He earned it. He's a good horse, and he's earned my love. I wouldn't get rid of him for anything. Now, let's talk about just plain getting bucked off. Boy, there's 3 real obvious ways to get bucked off a horse. One you have some control over. You go out in the morning, saddle him up, and take off, and that's a good opportunity for that horse to feel real good. Start crow hopping, buck you off, pow, you're on the ground. Because you were too lazy to put him in the round pen, work him a little while to see what shape he was in. And if he's in good shape, if he's not all wound up, fine. If he is all wound up, I'd rather be watching him do it than be on him. There's another good way of getting bucked off a horse. If you're in a group, you're going along, blop-de-dop-de-dop, and somebody runs a horse by you. That herd instinct is powerful. That'll set them off. When you're in a group, it's liable to be one of 2 things that does that to you. Kids, which kids are kids, you need to just talk to them before the ride. Say, hey, don't do that to me. Easy enough done. Another one, I'm not too proud to say, is men showing off for the lady folks. And they don't have to be young to do it. I've seen some old guys do some showing off. And anyway, just to let you know that. Men aren't the brightest when the ladies are around. Now let's talk about a third one that's really hard to defend yourself against, and I'll tell you what I do. You walk trot all day long. Kick that horse into a lope. That might be the time he'll buck. For some reason it opens the throttle and they like to, and they'll buck. Just transitioning into a lope, a gallop, whatever you want to call it. That opens the door for him to buck. What I do, and there's no way to know unless you're on his back and make him do it. The way I do it now, to know, is I got a cowboy. He's a rough, tough bronc stomper. He can ride anything. He likes it. He's young and likes it. He knows that when I call him and I meet him, and what his job is, I hand him the horse and he's rough. He grabs that horse, manhandles that horse, throws the saddle up, cinches it down, throws a bit in its mouth, jumps up, spurs and spanks, and yee-haw. You wondering why I'm so mean? Because I got to know what that horse will do when the chips are down and the world's falling apart all around him. I couldn't sell a horse to somebody I didn't know the limits on. If I sell a horse to somebody, I want to be able to say, yeah, you know, that horse, we've tested him out, he's not going to buck you off. Something like that. But you got to be a little tough sometimes to find out what the limits are of their tolerance. And I'll tell you what, I want to know. As soon as my cowboy's done and he's proved him out, one way or the other, I take him home, Ride him the next day just like normal, if he proves out. And he's fine. It doesn't ruin him emotionally for life or anything. But it's something you got to know. You might be in that situation. Could be a life-saving little dab of money you spent. I'm going on down to the river. I'll catch you down there and we'll talk some more. Pretty down here, ain't it? I like it a lot. You ever heard the term, ask for less, you'll get more? I'd heard that a lot. Never knew what it meant. Then one day it dawned on me. I was in a group of people, it dawned on me. I went, oh, I get it now. Well, everybody thought I was crazy. But here's where this comes from. Let's start off with, what do you do with a horse to get started? Let's say you want a side pass. So you get in a position. Maybe you get the fence right in front of you so you can't go forward. And then you just kind of bump with the calf of your leg. He don't get it. He don't know what you're asking. So you bump a little harder. He still don't know what you're asking for. So maybe then you turn your spur, tap him a little bit. He doesn't know. Tap him a little harder. Well, now he's starting to know something's got to give here because he's not liking this. And you tap even a little harder. Pretty soon he does even something close to the right thing. You quit and stop. The reward is to quit and stop. They love that. Don't you, Bubba? Let's get you up here in the camera. Come here, come here. He's camera shy. Come on. That a boy. Okay, you do that a lot of times. Pretty soon they figure out that you bump them with your calf of your leg a little bit, and they don't respond. Bump them a little harder, they don't respond. Get ready to touch them with the spur, they respond because they know it's coming. That's why they respond at all, is to avoid discomfort. They're smart. Pretty soon they know how to avoid the discomfort of being spurred on. Pretty soon all you got to do is just give a little bump with your calf of your leg. You go. They know it's better to go than to stick around and put up with your aggravation. They're avoiding it. And pretty soon you can get so slight with that nobody can see what you're doing. It's like, I had a fella one time ask me how my horse knew what I was doing when I wasn't asking him to do anything. And that was a compliment. But the fact of the matter was the horse and I are very tuned in. And I could ask him so slightly that he knew what I wanted. That is what they're talking about with ask for less and get more. Tone it down. Hone it down so that when they catch on and they start avoiding the big bump, keep asking for less. Asking for less. As long as they respond, ask for a little less. As long as they're responding to what you want, play the game of see how little you can ask them for, and they'll give it to you. Horses are a wonderful, marvelous creature for us. He says no, you don't believe that. But it's true. That's one of the reasons they're so wonderful for us is that they're perfectly content in whatever level of the dominant scale they're in. Like he's fine. He's fine with me. He finds comfort in me. He knows I'm not going to hurt him. And he and I get along just swell. He likes me. Don't you, Lou? Yeah. He said yes. You didn't hear him. But That's the whole concept of ask for less and get more. You build up to the response you want, and then you bring the ask down, down, down until the horse has given you what you want and you hardly even ask at all. I don't think other animals could do as good as a horse. I know mules and burros can't. I'm not a big fan of mules and burros. That's probably going to aggravate some people, but here's what I'll tell you about a horse. A horse will give you all he's got. He'll give you everything he's got. A mule and a burro will give you just enough to work with. I'd rather have a horse. But I don't want to aggravate all you mule and donkey people. But that's just my opinion. I'm probably wrong about that. Let's go on down to the river. I got a little bit more. If there's anything better than a good horse in beautiful country, I haven't found it. It's where I find my joy. Everything else is just waiting to be here. I got to tell you though, I really believe that I can make about any horse better, but I can't make any horse good. They got to have something to start with. I think 90% of the horses out there are not worth owning. I'm always looking for those few. And when you get the right mind in a horse, you've got something you can make great. That's the joy of this whole thing, is having a good horse that you make better, that you communicate with, that you enjoy. It don't come quick. You may have to go through a lot of horses. It doesn't come easy, and you can't do it riding a horse once a week. You got to work hard at it to get to the level that I like. But it's not work for me. It just doesn't work. So Louie and I are going to go on upriver and enjoy ourselves. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending a little money on this video. I really hope it's going to do you some good. If there's only one little thing you get out of it that helps you in a bad moment, then it was certainly worth it to you, and worth it to me. You know what I'm talking about. If you're watching this video this far, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Come on, Louie, let's go, Bubba.